We all know the unfortunate truth about the NFL. If you're one of the lucky few to make it there, your career is probably going to be short-lived. And that is especially true for the running back position. And for those of you that play fantasy football, you have to try and figure out when is the best time to move on from a running back before it's too late. Whether the running back's time is already passed and we need to be done with him, or whether or not we need to try and decide if it's the right time to sell high before that time comes. In fantasy football, it's just like a stock market. Sometimes you win them and sometimes you lose them, but we need to try and sell before we hit rock bottom. Today, we're going to be taking a look at several NFL running backs who we need to probably be careful with because their time in the spotlight could be coming to an end very soon. And for those of you that play in dynasty leagues, maybe you need to make a decision to move on from these guys before it's too late, or to not try and chase numbers from the past. And if you're in redraft leagues, maybe you need to try and decide whether or not these guys should be on your draft board this year. Some of the names on this list may not shock you. We don't want to chase the numbers of old with these guys because we aren't going to get them again. And there are a couple of names that probably will shock you because we need to be done before it's too late. Let's kick it off with Austin Ekeler. Same face, new place in Washington. Is he going to revitalize his career, or are those numbers done for? Back in 2021, Austin Ekeler went from being really just a receiving threat out of the backfield that we would try to flex on a weekly basis to an all-around back that was scoring touchdowns on the ground, through the air, and giving us big total numbers. And we rode that train in 2021 and 2022 to top 5 finishes at the running back position. And then this past year, we started to see a pretty big decline in production, and of course, some injury issues with that. But now that he's off to Washington, a lot of people are asking the question, is he going to get back to the Austin Ekeler of old, or what should we expect from him moving forward? Over the last couple of years, Austin Ekeler has been the guy in the Chargers backfield, but now in Washington, that's not going to be the case with Brian Robinson Jr. also there. But when you take a look at his carries over the last 3 seasons, we saw a dip from 2021 all the way to 2023. We've seen Austin Ekeler's rushing attempts dip in each of the last 3 seasons, from 206 3 years ago down to 204 and down to 179 this past year. And while a drop in the rushing attempts isn't the worst thing in the world, especially for a guy like Austin Ekeler, who in the past had been ultra efficient, it's that efficiency that does worry me, because let's take a look at runs of 10 or more yards. Because back in 2021 and 2022, in each of those years, he had 22 runs of 10 or more yards. But then this past year, that took a huge dip, dropping to only 7 rushes of 10 or more yards, all the way down from 22 the year prior. And yeah, while the dip in rushing attempts could be a slight factor as to why we saw less rushes of 10 or more yards, it still doesn't take away the fact that in 2021 and 2022, Austin Ekeler was running for 10 or more yards once every about 10 carries. In 2023, he was only running for 10 yards about once in every 25 carries. Austin Ekeler in Washington is going to be headed towards a reduced role, and while he's had success with a role like that in the past, I just can't bank on him being fantasy viable more times than not moving forward. If you're taking a look at him as maybe like a flex option or a bench stash, that's probably okay for the next year or two. But if you're really thinking that you're going to be able to rely on him to be a consistent fantasy contributor, I would probably be willing to bet you that that's just not going to be the case. Rest in peace to the hype of Taj Spears, which lasted for a brief moment. After Derrick Henry was essentially gone from Tennessee, people got excited that Taj Spears was going to be the next man up and was going to put up some pretty decent numbers for that offense. But then out of nowhere, the Tennessee Titans decided to invest in Tony Pollard through free agency. And yeah, Tony Pollard didn't have the greatest season in 2023, and there's still a lot of skeptics out there that believe that Tony Pollard isn't going to be as good as some of the numbers that we saw in Dallas at the beginning of his career. And quite honestly, I'm even skeptical about the fit of Tony Pollard in Tennessee. I don't think it's great, but it definitely isn't great for Taj Spears. And if you're thinking of either holding him or trying to buy low on him to be the backup for Tony Pollard, I don't know if I'm going to get too excited about what we'll get from him in the future. There's one big key factor to this that I think a lot of people forget about, and it's the fact that Taj Spears came into the NFL with a big history of ACL ACL tears in his right knee. Because his lengthy injury history is basically all in the right knee. Back in high school in 2015, he tore his right ACL. Then in 2020, while in college, he tore the right ACL again and his right meniscus. And while the advancement in medicine allows these running backs to now come back sometimes even stronger than they were before the ACL tear, we forget that the information was leaked prior to Taj Spears being drafted that he no longer has an ACL in his right knee and that arthritis has set in. There were a lot of medical experts out there that predicted that Taj Spears may only see 3 good years at the NFL level. We've already seen year 1 with his rookie year behind Derrick Henry, but now he's got Tony Pollard there as well. And Pollard signed a 3-year, $21.75 million contract this offseason. Now there is a potential out after year 2 that would essentially allow Tennessee to be done with that contract, and then Spears could be the guy, but that would be year 4 of his career. And if he were to deal with any other knee injuries before then, with the arthritis already setting in, I highly doubt we'll see highly effective Taj Spears anytime soon after that. So while everybody got super excited about Taj Spears, unfortunately at this point, it doesn't look like he's going to get an opportunity to showcase the talent that he truly is, which is obviously a disappointment. But at this point in time, if you're trying to invest in him in a dynasty league, it's going to be a wasted cost if Tony Pollard truly will be the guy over the next couple of years. And if you already have him and you were super excited about him, maybe you kick the tires on trading him to the Tony Pollard owner as a backup and trying to get some picks or maybe some younger guys that haven't proven themselves in return. There is one name that I believe some people are going to be trying to buy the dip on this offseason, and it's going to be Miles Sanders in Carolina, who effectively lost his starting job to Chuba Hubbard at the end of last year. And while Hubbard did have some good performances, he didn't do anything out of this world to necessarily lock the job down moving forward. I was an advocate that at the beginning of Miles Sanders' career, he just wasn't being utilized in Philadelphia correctly. And the numbers back in 2021 really pointed to a lot of efficiency without a lot of touches. Because back in 2021, on only 137 attempts, he averaged 5.5 yards per carry. His yards after contact per attempt were 2.92. And only on 137 carries, 20 of his runs went for 10 or more yards, while 11 of them went for 15 or more yards. So in 2022, when he was finally heavily utilized, he had a breakout campaign where he put up some huge numbers for the Philadelphia Eagles, which once again led to that jump over to Carolina and a nice offseason contract for him. And I don't think anybody anticipated Carolina being as bad as they were last year. And I don't know if I can get on board with them being a super improved team heading into 2024 either. And that's where things become a big concern for me, because he was a breakout star in 2022 after having some highly efficient years to year before that. But in 2023 with Carolina, that efficiency disappeared. On only 129 carries last year, he only averaged 3.3 yards per carry. His yards after contact per attempt dipped all the way down to 2.65. Then we saw a major drop off on the big runs because he only had 11 runs of 10 or more yards and only 4 runs of 15 or more yards. So if you're looking to buy the dip on Miles Sanders, the numbers are telling me it's not going to be worth it. The biggest factor for Miles Sanders is the fact that he went from a better team in Philadelphia to a worse team in Carolina. And if they're not going to be that much improved this year, can we really expect those efficiency numbers from last year to get a whole lot better? So I'm going to go ahead and say, with Chuba Hubbard still in Carolina fighting for that starting job, that the term buy low shouldn't be associated with Miles Sanders. All right, this name may not shock or surprise anyone, and certainly quite a few of you probably won't even care, but I'm going to bring up Jamal Williams again regardless. There were a lot of people last season that thought he was going to take his success from Detroit and just move it right on over to New Orleans, and that just did not end up happening. Now, I will say there could be some people taking a look at Jamal Williams again this year, but there's some inconsistencies with this backfield that I'm just not feeling right now, and I don't feel like Jamal Williams is just going to plug those in. Alvin Kamara was super inefficient last year. Kendre Miller didn't even really get a shot to show what he had last year. And of course, Jamal Williams just wasn't good. But if I had to bet on anyone in a dynasty format for this backfield, it 100% would be Kendre Miller before I would be betting on Jamal Williams. Because really, Jamal Williams' success in Detroit should be chalked up to just that, the environment that he was in. Because here's a list of career highs that Jamal Williams set while he was in Detroit compared to his season high totals in that category prior to that. He had a career high 262 rushing attempts with Detroit. His career high prior to that was only 153. He set a career high with 1,066 rushing yards. His previous career high, 601. 17 rushing touchdowns led the NFL and was absolutely a career high for Jamal Williams, considering fact his career high coming into that season was only 4. But here's a big one in Detroit. He had 30 missed tackles forced on 262 rushing attempts. His previous high was 24 on 153 rushing attempts. Yeah, he may have had 6 more missed tackles forced, but it took him over 100 carries to get those. At this point, Jamal Williams should be an afterthought in dynasty leagues, and let another owner in your league go ahead and take care of that. He had a great year while he was in Detroit. Absolutely loved watching it as a Lions fan. But he never did anything that special while he was in Green Bay, and I really didn't think he was going to do anything that special afterwards. And now he finds himself in a 3-headed backfield that has a younger guy behind him itching to steal that spot. All right, go ahead and buckle your seatbelts for this one, because I'm sure there's going to be some pushback, but I just want to get you all thinking. I'm not saying that you have to get rid of Christian McCaffrey right now, but should we be selling high for a buttload in return? I mean, he was the #1 fantasy football player last season, and it was by a wide margin. If we cash in on that right now, you're going to be able to get quite a few pieces in return, especially if it's a team that's vying for a title this year. And in 2023, Christian McCaffrey had 339 total touches. That is the second most that he has had in a season over the course of his career. Now, Christian McCaffrey has been healthy the last couple of years, which was great because after back-to-back campaigns that ended early, a lot of people had started to lose faith. But that is why I have some concerns, and I want to take a look at what could potentially happen in 2024 and 2025 based on his workload from the past couple of seasons. Because in 2018 and 2019, Christian McCaffrey had 730 total touches between the 2 seasons. He was the most heavily utilized running back in all of football. And that is when the injuries popped up. In 2020 and 2021, he only had 212 total touches between the 2 seasons and only played in 10 games. But now after getting back to health and having good seasons in 2022 and 2023, he racked up 666 total touches between the last 2 years. So then that begs the question. After back-to-back years of insane touches that went over 700, he had back-to-back seasons of dealing with shortened years. Then now he's had back-to-back seasons of huge touches once again. Does that mean that in 2024 and 2025, we could potentially looking at a breakdown from him? And again, this isn't a, hey, be done with Christian McCaffrey and move forward. This is a, hey, you should really be thinking about the risk versus the reward of keeping him and trading him away. After back-to-back seasons of a lot of touches, the risk is going to be, yeah, he would end up breaking down again and he's going to miss some time. And right now, his value may be the highest that you're going to see in a while. Trying to replicate last season is doable, but once again, is it possible? And if he doesn't, will you still be able to get the same type of return for him next season? The reward would be trading him now, getting an absolute haul that could be a younger top running back. You could get a higher end wide receiver. Maybe you're looking for a tight end in a trade. Whatever it may be, Christian McCaffrey would be the one guy in all of fantasy football that could get you that return right now. But Headliner Nation, you let me know down in the comments about Christian McCaffrey. If you owned him in in a dynasty league, would you be locked in on keeping him right now, or would you be looking to possibly trade him if you could get a big haul in return? And if this video can get 500 likes, I'm gonna pick somebody to win a free draft guide. So make sure you like the video and comment below so we can choose one of you to get it. And if you haven't heard yet, our draft guide is now available, the earliest we've ever made it available to you, which will include dynasty content leading up to all of the redraft content being available to you later in the summer. But for now, Headliner Nation, I'm gonna get out of here. Y'all stay safe and healthy. YouTube is probably recommending a video to you right now that you may have missed from our channel. If you did, make sure you watch it. But stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.